Hey, hi, hello, my name is dis.cat. This is Project Hardcover, where we're letting books be the escape. Hello, lovelies, and today for you I have my June wrap-up, which, as predicted in my June TBR, is quite large. I know, why do I make promises? Why do I do this thing that I know I'm not going to be able to follow through on? I don't know. Probably never will. I'm going to try to do this as quickly and as efficiently as possible so we're not here for half an hour. Also, as promised in my May wrap-up, right? Yeah, May was the month before this one. I have all of my star ratings. You can't see any of this, but my star ratings for all of these books are on here so I don't have to guess and check. I know what it is. Ah, look, I keep some promises, the little ones. There's just nothing there. This is not working the way that I wanted it to. But enough of all of this silliness, let's just hurry up and get to these books so we're not here forever. Okay, let's get started. The first book that I tackled this month was Rebel Angels by Lumberjanes, which is the second book in the Gemma Doyle trilogy. So I read the first book in this series in November, and I really liked it. I really liked the paranormal feel. I loved how headstrong Gemma was, you know, for the time period that she lived in. It was just really interesting, and I was really excited to see where this second installment went. And I was very, very happy with it. The story got a lot more interesting. There was a lot more thrill and mystery, and it picked up like a way darker edge, and we got to delve into the characters some more, and it's just turning out to be so much more than I ever expected it was going to be. That being said, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I want to say that I can't wait to start the third book, but guys, have you seen that thing? It's a brick. For those of you who don't know, this trilogy follows these girls who live in like Victorian, I want to say Victorian, even though I'm sure that's not right, Victorian era England, and they go to this boarding school, and all of these paranormal things start happening. So if you like paranormal and boarding school, this is for you. The next books that I picked up in June was the entire Wish series by Clamp. So as I said in my June TBR, I got these for like my 16th birthday, and for some reason they have just been collecting dust on my bookshelves all these years. Like seriously, I have no idea why I have not picked these up. Clamp is my all-time favorite manga artist, and I love everything that they do, so I have no idea why I just completely ignored this for the better part of, how old am I? 6 years. 6 years. So I finally decided that, you know what, it was just time that I finally read these, and I did, and I really liked this. Was it anything spectacularly original? No. Was there just all of the basic classic Clamp tropes just all over the place in this? Yes. Was it still painfully adorable and just so mushy and light and good and great? Yes. It's just a really fun, really short, quick little story, and it's just so adorable and cute, and it gives you warm, fuzzy feels, and just, it was great, and it was great breakup material in between all of the normal books that I had read this month, and it was just, it was great. I love Clamp. I love them. This series is about an angel named Kohaku, who is sent to Earth to look for an angel master who has recently disappeared. But while on Earth, she runs into some trouble with some pesky demons and ends up being saved by a human boy named Suichiro. So naturally, Kohaku, being the embodiment of a pure soul and just a good person, really wants to repay Suichiro for his assistance, but Suichiro kinda doesn't have anything he wants. So the story really just follows Kohaku and Suichiro and their friends, and Kohaku trying to repay this debt that she feels she owes Suichiro, and all warm, fuzzy feels and greatness. Just, I love Clamp. I love Clamp. Just, ooh, I love them. I love them. As for star ratings, I gave the first and second volume 4 stars, I gave the 3rd volume 5 stars, and I gave the last 4th volume 4 stars. The next book that I picked up in June was Chew by John Layman and Rob Guillory. Specifically, volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Chew. Yes, so initially I just had the first volume of Chew, but I read the first volume of Chew and I just absolutely had to go out and get more volumes. And as we speak, the good people of Amazon are working very hard to deliver even more volumes of Chew to me. Yes, so Chew follows the story of Tony Chew, who was a police officer with a very peculiar ability. See, Tony is a Chibo or Chibo, not entirely sure how to pronounce it, path, Chibo or Chibo path, and basically they have the ability to get like a psychic reading based on food that they eat. So like if he eats an apple, he can tell what tree the apple came from, or what pesticides were used on the apple, or if he eats a hamburger, he gets to watch the entire process of that hamburger getting made. Like, the entire process. And in Tony Chew's world, the United States has recently just been devastated by this really bad bird flu. So all poultry products have been completely banned. Like, you're not allowed to own chickens, you're not allowed to cook chickens, you're not allowed to eat chickens, you're not allowed to do anything with chickens or turkey or any kind of bird. But of course, Tony's job doesn't stay simple with just, you know, putting away illegal chicken farmers and such. Of course, it gets just so much more complex and dark and gritty, and also hilariously funny. Yes, I was totally going into this and just thinking that, you know, there would be some really gory moments just, you know, for laughs and giggles and shock value, but there's actually quite a lot of intrigue going on in this, and it gets really interesting, and just new things keep happening that make the story that much more complicated and interesting, and it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so addicting. So addicting. So addicting to the point that, like I said, I am currently waiting for more volumes of this to come out, and then as soon as I'm done reading those, I'm gonna go get some more until I'm all caught up, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do. So yes, I really, 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 really like this series so far, and I definitely recommend going out and picking it up. As for star ratings, I gave the first volume a 5 star, the second volume a 5 star, the third volume a 5 star, and then the fourth volume only got a 4 star. Not an awful lot happened in this one. The next book that I picked up in June was Lumberjanes Volume 1 by a whole gaggle of people, but most specifically and importantly to me, Noelle Stevenson. You know, she wrote that other book that, you know, I'm like in love with called Nimona. I did a full book review on it, so if you want to check that out, it will be down in the doobly-doo. Yes, so as mentioned, Noelle Stevenson wrote Nimona, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. One of my absolute faves now. So when I figured out that she was working on a graphic novel series, I had to get my hands on it. And I did, and it was so much fun. So basically, this graphic novel follows these 5 friends who have gone to this special camp for very headstrong and stubborn and really kick-ass girls. And they're totally just expecting to have a nice fun summer hanging out with each other and doing all kinds of best friendy, campy type stuff. But then, of course, stuff has to go awry. Yeah, so basically a whole bunch of like really weird paranormal things keep happening, and they just kind of have to roll with the punches. That being said, it just creates these amazingly funny scenarios that these girls handle in the best possible ways. They have the best attitudes about the entire thing. Their friendship is, of course, amazing, awe-inspiring, just everything that you want friendship goals to be, and it's just so cute, and it's so much fun, and I need the second one. I need the second one, but I have to wait until the end of the year for it to come out, and I'm just such a sad cookie about it. That being said, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars as well, and I definitely just recommend people just go out and get your hands on anything that Noelle Stevenson has touched. The next book that I picked up in the month of June, can you guess? Can you possibly guess what it might be? That's right! It's another graphic novel, and this one is The Wicked and the Divine, the first volume, which is the Faust Act, by Kika something Gillen. Yes, so this was a graphic novel that I have seen countless people pick up, and I've seen people enjoy it. I don't know, I was skeptical about it. Just something about it was like, nah, dis.cat, you're not gonna like me. But as I mentioned, I just kept seeing it everywhere. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm going to give it a shot and just see what happens. And guess what? Awesomeness happened. Yes, so this graphic novel takes place in this world where every 90 years, 12 gods are reincarnated into the bodies of teenagers. And for 2 years, these teenagers become just these pop culture icons. They become like pop stars and artists and stuff like that, and they become just super hyper famous. And then they die. And then the whole cycle starts all over again. And we're basically just following the narrative of this young girl who has somehow, through just really odd and random circumstances, gotten wound up in all of this craziness. So yes, this was fantastic. Just the entire premise and the story is so interesting. The characters are really snarky and witty and very different. They have their own kind of politics going on, and also they're competing with like the outside world, you know, with people saying, oh, you're frauds and none of this is real and you're all crazy and just all of that kind of stuff. And it's just so interesting. And also the art in this is phenomenal. So yes, I highly recommend this. Go pick this up. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the second volume, which is coming out in July, and I'm super excited. The next book that I picked up in the month of June was, can you guess? Yep, more graphic novels! This time it was Morning Glories by Nick Spencer. Specifically volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Morning Glories. And also, as we speak, the good people of Amazon are working very hard to deliver volumes 4 and 5 of Morning Glories to me, because frankly, I am obsessed with this now. So this graphic novel series follows these 6 teenagers who were specifically chosen to attend this very prestigious and very advanced and very difficult to get into private school called Morning Glory Academy. But of course they show up for their first day to class and nothing is like what they were promised it was going to be. And that is all I am telling you. I know that that's torturous and it doesn't really tell you anything, but trust me, going into this with as little knowledge as possible is just the best thing ever. It will blow your mind with how spectacular it is, and just every single volume things are happening and new stuff happens and you're just like, is this happening? Is this a thing that's happening? Is this really happening? Am I crazy? What is going on? And it's so addicting and it's so fabulous and it's so awesome and just epic, and this is so great. I need more. Needless to say, all of them got 5 stars. All of them got 5 stars. I would give them 20 stars if I could, because they were just so good and amazing, and I love this. I love it so much. Oh. So after that little graphic novel binge, I decided I need to get my happy butt back on my TBR train, and I read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Yes, so as I've mentioned, I've really wanted to read more classics because it feels like forever since I've read any classics, and that makes the English major in me very sad. So I decided to pick a couple of classics that I, myself, just could not believe I have not read yet, and decided to read them this month, and this was one of them. I'm pretty sure that, like, all kids, like, everywhere, have had to read this book in school at some point. I didn't, miraculously. I don't know how. So I'm sure all of you know what this is about, but in case you don't, I'm going to tell you. This book follows a young girl named Scout who lives in Depression-era Alabama. And it basically follows the day-to-day life of her and her brother for a few years while they're living in Depression-era Alabama with their father, Atticus Finch, who is actually in the process of defending a black man in a case against a white girl. Yes, so as you can imagine, there are all kinds of themes and, you know, messages about racism in this, and I was expecting that going into it, but I wasn't expecting all of the feminist messages in it and just decent human being messages in it, and I just wasn't expecting it to impact me as much as it did, considering how, you know, even though I hadn't read this book, I kind of knew everything that happens in it before I read it. But even with all of the knowledge of knowing what was gonna happen, when it was gonna happen, and all of that, this book was still outstanding. This book is just beautifully written, it's simply written, it's definitely one of the easier classics I've ever had to read, and the messages are just so poignant and moving and just so raw, and it was so good. This has definitely become one of my favorite books of all time. It's just so beautiful. I understand why people have such passionate love about it. It's so good. 5 out of 5 stars. If you guys have not picked up this classic yet, you really need to. It really is one of the easier ones to digest. Not an awful lot of highfalutin language or anything, and the story is just really good and simple and just so amazing. Just read it. If you haven't read it, read it. The next book that I picked up in the month of June was Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jessie Andrews. Yes, so I decided to read this book this month in anticipation for the movie that came out this month that I have not yet seen. Can you tell just how happy I am about that little fact there? Yeah, no. Damn you, select theater movies! But anywho, this story revolves around a high school boy named Greg who really doesn't do friends. Like, the closest thing he has to a friend is this kid named Earl, and he doesn't even really consider him a friend either. He's just a guy that helps him make these really crappy homemade movies. But this all changes his senior year when his mom kind of forces him to befriend this girl who is dying of cancer. So, of course, I heard everyone say how hilarious this book was gonna be, and I was like, okay, you know, there might be a slight chuckle here and there, and whatever, but no, guys. This book was, like, laugh out loud funny. Like, the first chapter had me cracking up laughing. And that's really, like, hard to do when you're writing a book about teenagers and cancer. But Jessie Andrews, he just did it so naturally, and it was just so natural. I don't know how else to describe it. It was just natural humor. And just the entire arc of the story did not go at all where I thought it was going to go, and it was really refreshing to see. This book was just nothing at all like what I thought it was going to be, and I just really enjoyed that. That being said, I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I am just so super excited to see this movie. It just needs to hurry up and be in theaters near where I live. The next book that I read in the month of June was another deviation from TBR because I have no self-control, and that was Volume 4 of East of West by Jonathan Hickman? Yeah, Jonathan Hickman. So yes, this was incredibly highly anticipated by me, and I was totally expecting to have to wait until like June 23rd or something to get my hands on this, but it graciously and miraculously arrived on my doorstep on like June 15th, and then I promptly devoured the ever-loving crap out of it. Yes, this story is just so complex and deep and intriguing and interesting and amazing, and I love it so much. Also, just an added bonus, just something that made this particular volume just so fantastic was, guys, they gave us infographics. They gave us infographics, and they gave us a timeline, and just, oh, that helped so much. Like, every time I talk about this series, I talk about how it's a little confusing to grasp because they kind of just move on with the story. They don't take an awful lot of time to sit down and explain like the different territories or the chronological order of things to you, but well, now they have. So if any of you have been interested in this series or gave the first volume a try and you just couldn't get into it because you didn't understand what was happening, plow through it. Get here, read the little infographic thingy, and everything will be good and right in the world, because this series is fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. Love this series. Mooey! The next book that I picked up this month was I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. Yes, so I have been super excited to get my hands on this ever since I saw it pop up on both Christine from Poland Bananas Books and Kat from Catty-tastic's top 14 of 2014 book lists. And then they had to take it a step further and give this book the Prince Award, not Prince Honor, full-blown Prince Award, and then I was just sold. I was just sold. This book was going to be read by me. And yes, it was read by me, and now it is adored by me. So this book follows the artistic twin duo of Jude and Noah. And for most of their lives, Jude and Noah are like most twins and are completely inseparable. But then something happens when the twins are 13 years old and they stop talking. So the book takes place in 2 different time periods from 2 different perspectives. It takes place from Noah's perspective when they're 13, and it takes place from Jude's perspective when they're 16. And guys, this is one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. Just this book had a way of making you feel things, whether you wanted to or not. It just took its words and just completely shoved them into your heart and soul. It made you feel all of these deep, complex emotions, and oh, it was so painful, but it was so good at the same time. Just the characters are so complex and deep and flawed and fractured and broken, and it's amazing. And their relationships are also very complex yet fractured and broken, but beautiful at the same time. There's a romance in here that is absolutely ridiculously adorable, and the story is so heartbreaking and just, oh, it was so good, so good. One of my favorite books of all time now. I am currently trying to get my hands on another volume of this so I can annotate it. That's how much I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. You guys have not read this yet. Just do it. Do it now. The next book that I picked up in the month of June was Pretty Deadly, Volume 1 by Kelly Sue DeConnick. So this was another graphic novel that I had seen floating around everywhere, but for some reason it just kept whispering in my ear, "You're not going to like me." So I kind of just stayed away from it. But while I was at the comic book store picking up more graphic novels, I picked up a chapter sampler of this and I read it, and it was so interesting that I just decided, what the hell, I'm gonna buy the full-blown volume. And guess what? It was fantastic! So this graphic novel is kind of this gothic western fairy tale folk tale kind of thing. It basically tells the story of Death and the beautiful woman he loves and their daughter, who has become like this vengeful spirit that people can call upon to right their wrongs. And of course a whole bunch of, you know, other dramatic and incredibly interesting things that I can't talk about because it would spoil like the entire first volume, but it was just so awesome. Like the entire story and the way that it unfolded, it was just so beautifully done. The artwork is stunning and the story is so interesting so far, and it's just gonna get way more interesting. Like, I just know it's gonna get so much more interesting, and I'm so excited for it. I cannot wait for the second volume of this to come out. Needless to say, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommend this. This was just so cool. The next book that I picked up in the month of June was 100 Sideways Miles by Andrew Smith. Yes, so ever since I read Winger last year and fell completely in love with it, I've been wanting to read another Andrew Smith book. And when I heard Jesse from Jesse the Reader talking about how spectacular this one was, I decided this one was gonna be the one. So this book follows the story of a young man named Finn, who, when he was a child, had a dead horse fall on him and his mother, which consequently killed her and left him with some damage to his spinal cord that now causes him to have seizures. And guys, that's not even the most peculiar thing about Finn. And it's basically just his story, him trying to find out who he is, trying to deal with normal things that teenagers go through high school, all of that jazz. And guys, this was wow. Just wow. That's the only word I have, is like, wow. I mean, it's not like the story itself was painfully interesting or painfully unique or anything, but the way that the story is told is spectacular. It's just so unique and it's so addicting and beautiful. I love the way that Finn thinks in this book. Like, his whole thought process of, you know, defining time not by, you know, actual time, but by miles, and looking at himself as, like, atoms from a star. Just, I loved that. It was so beautiful. I loved how fractured the story was. It was just so good. It made this book so interesting and just so fantastic. I loved this book. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. You guys, if you guys have not read an Andrew Smith book, you're not living a full life. You're not. I'm sorry, you're just not. We're nearing the end, guys. I swear. We're getting there. We're encroaching. The next book that I read in the month of June was Apocalyptic Girl, an aria for the end times by Andrew MacLean. So this was a graphic novel that just happened to, you know, float by on my Amazon while I was ordering all of my 8 million other graphic novels, and it was really cheap, and it was small, and it's a standalone, so I decided to pick it up and give it a try. This graphic novel basically follows the story of Arya and her little cat companion Jellybean as they try to survive during the end of the world. And for the most part, I liked this book. I mean, the art style was really cute, and it was a really quick read, but I think that last part may have hurt it more than it helped it. I just didn't feel like there was a really rich story going on here. I don't feel like the story or even the characters were flushed out enough, and I think that's because it is just a little standalone volume. I think that if this maybe had like 2 or 3 volumes to it, he would have been able to do so much more with it, and it would have been that much more interesting. That being said, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay, it just didn't blow me away like all of the other graphic novels have been doing as of late. The next book that I read in the month of June was Ruin and Rising, which is the 3rd and final book in the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Yes, so I started the Grisha trilogy in November, and I really liked it. I thought the first book was beautiful. The writing in this entire series is absolutely beautiful, and the characters have had this really nice, steady, progressive growth throughout the entire series. And I've just really been enjoying it. So I was really excited to get to this volume, even with the spoiler. Yeah, I was kind of spoiled for this, but only just a little bit, just a smidgen. Like, I was spoiled, but I didn't have like the full spoiler. For those of you who've read it, I think you guys might be able to figure it out. I had part of the spoiler, but like not the whole thing. But even with all of that, I still really loved this book, and I loved how it all wrapped up. I was completely satisfied with it, and I just really enjoy this entire trilogy overall. The world is just really rich and beautiful. The story is interesting, and it's so thrilling in parts, and the characters are extremely captivating. Like, I know a lot of people have problems with Alina. They think that she's a weak character, but I completely disagree with that. I think that Alina is, you know, an accurate portrayal of what a girl in her situation would do when having all of this nonsense thrust upon her. I think that she was realistic. So yes, I really like this book. very happy with how it ended. Really, really enjoyed this trilogy. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Totally recommend this trilogy to everyone. It's really, really good. It really is. And then finally, we have the last book. And the last book that I read in June was SlaughterhouseFive by Kurt Vonnegut. Yes, so this was the other classic that I really, really, really wanted to get to because of all of my lack of classicness. And also, this is just a really beloved classic by an extremely beloved author that I have not read anything by. So I really wanted to read this, and I did. And guys, oh, this was so good. So this book follows the story of Billy Pilgrim, who was a soldier during World War II and saw some really, really atrocious things. But he manages to survive the war and go home and start a life, and then one day he is visited by aliens. He then becomes what he calls unstuck in time and starts traveling through all these different fragments of his life, from his childhood to before the war to during the war to after the war, and all of this sci-fi craziness. So this book is very peculiar. It's told in a very peculiar way. It's very fragmented. It takes place all over the place. There's no linear fashion to it. It jumps from past to present to near present to way far past, all over the place. But guys, it was still just so good. Just Kurt Vonnegut's humor, and then just the moments when he's funny, he's hilariously funny. And then the moments when he wants to be heartbreakingly cruel, he is heartbreakingly cruel. And this book, it makes you feel so many things. And then knowing that part of this book, a big part of this book, is autobiographical, just makes the reading experience that much more intense. It makes you feel things so much more, and it was so fantastic, so good, so amazing. 5 out of 5 stars, and I just absolutely cannot wait to get my hands on more Kurt Vonnegut books because, oh my god, this man was a genius. And that is it! Those were all of the books that I read in June. Guys, I know these wrap-ups are getting cray with how long they are, but hopefully July's won't be that long, considering how I'll be doing 2 separate ones. One for normal July TBR and one for Booktubeathon. So, hopefully not a long wrap-up for July. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have read any of these books, how you guys felt about them, because, oh guys, I loved, like, all of these books. I'm just so happy with this month. I want to fangirl about all of these books. They were so good. As always, thanks you guys for watching. I will see you next time, and remember, books are the escape. They're so great. Books are amazing.